Dear colleagues, we're starting our session. It's the first business event of the second day of the exhibition, and traditionally we hold a plenary session of our theme track, which is digital manufacturing. And this year we decided to change the format of the session, because exhibition is mostly about establishing new contacts, and contacts are about B2B meetings. And today, around this table, we decided to gather people from the industry and developers of technological solutions. Journalists, just recently taking a look at the number of participants, called our meeting room a battleground. But this is not true, actually, because we are not opposing each other. We're in the same boat. Our work is about creating products which are in demand, which create value for our consumers. And around this table today, we have heads of largest manufacturing companies of our country and also suppliers and solution developers. Let me introduce the participants to you. To the left from me is Denis Mantorov, Minister of Industry and Commerce, Alexei Rakhmanov, the President of United Shipbuilding Corporation, Kirill Komarov, First Deputy Head of Rosatom, Mikhail Rybakov, Executive Director of the Russian Helicopters, Patrick Fardo, Vice President of Dassault Systems, John Stewart, Vice President of PTC, Jonathan Sparrow, General Director of Cisco CIS, Anton Malkov, the member of the board of Galactica Corporation, Nikolai Likodimov, partner of KPMG, and Andrei Dukhvalov, manager of Future Technologies in Kaspersky Lab. So we are going to run our session as follows. First, we would like to ask representative of manufacturing companies to tell us about their plans related to implementation of new technologies. We would also like you to let us know which challenges you had whilst implementing these new technologies, and also if you could share your own conclusions and your own ideas, what may go wrong. Please share these ideas with the solution developers. And as far as solution developers are concerned, we expect you to tell us what kind of interesting products you are planning to offer to your customers, both here in Russia and abroad, and also what challenges do you face and what difficulties do you run into when you work with your customers. And Mr. Mantorov, I would ask you to be the, let's say, the referee of this session. And we want to have a discussion, a conversation, and we will have an hour and a half for this session. And this session should finally, in my view, result in acquiring a better understanding of each other's position. So we brought you all to this table, and we hope that participants of this round table will acquire indeed better understanding of the interests pursued by each party. And finally, you will find it easier to work with each other. Because before the session started, I realized that you know each other quite well, which means that solution developers are already in contact with the heads of manufacturing companies. So Alexei, I'd like to give the word to you first. What kind of integrated technologies or revolutionary technologies, out of those which belong to Industry 4.0 concept, what have you implemented already? What are you implementing now? And I'd like to reiterate my point. We would like to know more about the challenges you had and the difficulties you ran into over the course of introducing new technologies. What kind of lessons have you learned? What can you tell to solution developers? Okay, thank you very much, dear Denis. And dear colleagues, I'll try to be fairly brief. I'll give you a short account of what's happening in the shipbuilding corporation as far as digitization is concerned. Well, I don't think I have to say that to us this is one of the key trends. And I mean, 4 years ago, there were companies in our group which were exchanging 2D drawings and every company was working on its own 3D model, and that's unthinkable situation actually now. And we do have the main pieces of software. Actually, we had a lot of these software applications, and we used to call them a zoo, an application zoo. Every company in our group had 1, 2, 3, or 1,000 licenses for a number of software applications, like software applications related to financial management and other things. We had a lot of bits of software which were created by our own IT specialists at shipyards. There were some abandoned software applications, like, for example, the Baltic shipyard had to use a very old version of financial management software, which was developed by a company which is no longer there. So, but that software was further developed by our people, and we turned it into, let's say, a quasi ERP system of our own development. But out of the 40 companies which form the structure of our group, so we have 40 companies in our group, so we cannot just switch over to a new system, and it will be an equivalent of death. So we need to ensure our financial data migration, technical data migration, and given the fact that we have a very long production cycle, which is 2 or 3 years, we would have to effectively stop our production, which is impossible. So based on these assumptions, we have prepared a document, which is called, one is the strategy, and the second is the technical policy. And each of these documents relate to main aspects of the work of our corporation, like administrative processes, financial processes, engineering processes, procurement, project management, and so on and so forth. If we take a look at the main vendors who we work with, then you would see that they're also operating a number of systems. However, the two keystone documents which I pointed out, they indicate the principle of our development. We want to develop a platform. And after that decision was made, we faced sanctions. So, and within these, so we have to take into account the opinion of those companies who provide us with technical support. And I must say we have done a lot. We have taken many steps towards building closer ties with design bureaus. So we ensured that we have proper data transfer in full compliance with the Russian legislation. And as of today, we are ready to implement the new PLM solutions, but on the new basis. We have agreed that all new projects which we are about to start will be launched in the single information environment, which will be shared by design bureaus and manufacturers, which means that we will be capable to build an electronic or digital model of our product, and that will help us to avoid mistakes which we used to make when we worked with hard copies of documents and we worked trying to control it all manually. So what was the challenges which we had? When we tried to introduce these PLM solutions in our corporation, we faced the GOST standard 23888, which outlines requirements to operating electronic design systems. And under this GOST, it is simply impossible to transfer the 3D model in the digital form. So you have to transfer this information in printouts. And we believe that that needs to be resolved very quickly. And it does not matter which group will become the center of this or that PLM solution. However, we need to provide the proper legislative support to this process. So another thing is sanctions. We would like Russian software developers to take a look at us as their true customers, as their true consumers. I hold all I respect all our software developers, and in our corporation we have more than 900 IT people who are supporting software applications, who are providing hardware support. And we have a big number of engineering products which are prepared in a very talented way. But unfortunately, nobody is looking at this as a business, apart from Western companies. They do. So no one is taking it as building a proper environment for the customer, providing proper support, because this is the key problem we face when we work with Russian software developers. However, we understand if none of foreign vendors will be able to disclose the source codes for us, and this disclosure is required by the Russian regulators. So, and that requirement is in force regarding the manufacturing facilities which produce double application products. Then if the source code is not disclosed, then we will not be able to work together. And we do believe that our software developers will be able to pick up this task and will be able to provide us proper support finally in terms of engineering systems, update of reference tables, and so on. And that will help us to make our contribution into development of PLM solutions. So from our perspective, that's what things look like. Thank you, dear Alexei. And Kirill, could you please give us your account from Rosatom? In which areas do you introduce and implement these solutions? Or what are you working on now? And do you have any troubles with software developers? Good morning, dear colleagues. I think I'll just say that any big company, as far as digitization is concerned, any big company goes through several stages of development, and it faces various challenges depending on which stage it is at. So you don't start with the digitization, you start with automation first. And you don't start with your main production process. You start automating auxiliary processes like accounting, like HR issues, salary calculation. So you start automating the typical tasks and standardized tasks. And I think in any company, this is way easier. And Alexei has just mentioned transfer to a single integrated platform. In Rosatom, we started this work in 2009. We built up a single center inside our organization. We call it Green Atom. And we made this organization responsible for the automation. And now this center, due to the effect of economy of scale, due to enhanced productivity in a number of standardized processes, due to relocation of some of our people. So we have relocated people from Moscow to Nizhny Novgorod, so brought them all together, and we have created the economy of scale, and we got fairly good results, both in terms of automating processes at proper quality and in terms of reducing the cost of these processes. However, the most tricky area for us is automation and digitization of our main production processes. And we are being pushed hard by the competition because we work in a competitive environment. A number of vendors who work in the nuclear area in the world, they are competing for the customers. And now when we start negotiating nuclear solutions with a country, we are not competing with other with other suppliers of nuclear solutions. We actually compete with other types of power generation. And from that standpoint, we have to come up with a competitive solution, both in terms of the cost of the facility and in terms of its operating cost and the life cycle cost. And in this case, we need to take into account the scale. Because 12 years ago, when we started this, we had 5 nuclear units under construction at different stages. Currently, we are building 35 units abroad. and 36 in our country. So it is impossible to manage this work without digitizing it. And we face more and more stringent requirements from our customers. Our customers no longer want just a nuclear facility. They want a digital twin to be handed over to them after we build this facility. And they want this digital twin to be updated over the course of the life cycle of this nuclear power plant. We are not just a corporation. We are an entire industry. And we possess extensive resources internally in our organization. And that was the case before sanctions were imposed, because our corporation is responsible for civil aspects and also military aspects. And so we have large teams of software designers under our management. Historically, they were involved in developing digital products for internal needs of the nuclear industry. And that relates to all sorts of products like mathematical models of physical processes, complex engineering management system, production management system. So we are building our own supercomputers, for example. We are focusing on that fairly heavily. And we undergo a very interesting moment now, which means that having acquired a lot of data and acquired a lot of best practices, which can be implemented internally, now we can integrate them and we can provide these practices as a value to our customers. Like you mentioned that this meeting room may be a battleground. Well, I actually represent manufacturers and customers at the same time. And Alexei was right in saying that it is very difficult to be it is always very difficult for a Russian company to become a full-time supporter for its customers and make sure that the product is supported over the course of its lifetime and make sure that the product is at such level that it can be completely handed over to the customer. So that's true. So we are not alone in this journey. We have vast experience of working together with a number of foreign companies, and so. But what is the result of this cooperation? The key result and the key value which we got out of this cooperation is this: building up our nuclear products. We realized that in the market, ready-made products of these categories are not available. And we have good experience with a number of our partners, like Dassault Systems, for example, where when we used to take their standardized solutions, but in order to convert these solutions into a fully fledged product which would fit nuclear industry, we had to work in partnership. And this is what we have with Dassault. We have, in partnership, with them, we built a multi-D product focused on managing complex engineering products. So we have taken Dassault product, we have integrated it into our experience, and we got the digital product for the nuclear industry, which we use internally. And just recently, we started using the same product to the benefit of the largest power generator in the world, EDF. So we are providing them this product as a solution. So to us, as Rosatom, the availability of an army of software developers, availability of our experience for us, experience of developing products, software and digital products for ourselves. This is what we believe is the benefit, and this is why we are focusing not on working like a supplier and the customer. This is why we always focus on building up partnerships, because we want to bring our international experience from our side, and based on the product provided by our suppliers and our experience, we want to build a completely new product. which will fit our own internal needs and which will fit the needs of international nuclear industry, not even nuclear industry, power generation industry, and actually any industry which implies managing and controlling complex engineering facilities. And this, I think, this is the specificity of Rosatom.
Thank you, Kirill Borisovich. Mikhail Shibakov from Russian Helicopters. Good morning, colleagues. I will not be talking about some of the solutions that have been developing for 15 years. So we wanted to have a throughput, end-to-end platform, tie-in digital twins to have digital testing grounds and digital production as well, and tie it all not inside the holding but also with our suppliers and with the client. And if I speak about our goals, of course, it's the time to the market, costs, and quality. And speaking of the problems, if you talk about Russian suppliers and developers, but also international ones as well, unfortunately, colleagues implement not out-of-box solutions but unique solutions, and they do not reach the cutting-edge level. But when you implement all different solutions, it's not so easy for the business to keep it all under the same roof. So if I talk about the Russian developers, for some reason they don't want to, without naming them, they don't want to learn from the international experience. They don't want to look at the existing things, existing solutions, and adapt them and replicate them. That might be the main idea for them, because you don't need to reinvent the wheel and then implement it. I think it's just a waste of time. And if we talk about impacts that we've had, so we implemented several elements like IoT and AI. In a year and a half, we saved 156 million rubles, so about 10%. So that's a real impact. And if we going forward in the next 10 years, we'll be implementing AI fully in our design processes and our production processes. So without AI, you will not be able to make it to Industry 4.0. In light of this, our colleagues, developers, should offer those solutions that allow combining those elements. So you need to do it stage by stage, step by step, and you need to understand the final objective, and to reach it, you have to do it this way. We don't have it yet. You develop unified, integrated solution that is scalable and which is integrated. So if all industries develop unique solutions just for themselves, maybe that will make developers happy, because there will be a lot of work for them. But from the standpoint of costs and time needed for that, I don't think it's justified. Thank you, Mikhail Borisovich. Before we move to our conversation with suppliers of cellulose, I would like to come back to Kirill. And if Alexei, they could also comment, because we have one very large international player. Yesterday the minister mentioned him, General Electric. His head ambitiously said that in the next 5 years we should become a software company, not to be a manufacturing company anymore. So results of that transformation are not very exciting. The main project that General Electric developed didn't become the driver to take the company to be a leader. Thousands of people were laid off, and the author of that statement, he was also laid off. So what about Rosatom? Do you take into account the experience of General Electric, being because you are in that kind of industry? And also, do you think they were too slow moving towards when they moved from being a manufacturing company to a software company, or that was the wrong direction that they chose, and you should just do your own job. I think it's not a nice thing to talk about somebody else's problem and to do it and to look down on others. It's not good. It's not good. I think some distance is needed to evaluate what has happened, to see the reality as it is with G. And the information that I have is too straightforward, too linear. So I cannot say that G made a mistake. From what I read in the media, I think expectations of the shareholders were different. They wanted to get immediate results and get some returns on their investments, and the company was asking them to wait. They said, well, let's wait and then we will fly real quick. And so that's how I see it. And speaking of the trends, I'm firmly convinced that G was moving in the right direction. Once again, what we see today in our own production processes, without digitalization, it's impossible to remain competitive, to stay competitive, because you have technological restrictions. And if even new materials, if you don't compare them, if you don't do it digitally, you will not be able to proceed. And GE, they have excellent steam turbines, but they are not equipped with sensors. If you do not collect data from them continuously, if you don't run predictive analytics, how that turbine will behave, when it will need maintenance, etc., how it will work, how it will generate power. So you get to a limit, and beyond that limit, you will not be able to move. Nobody will be able to predict those parameters. So it's not about them being bold or not, but physically in today's world you just cannot do without it. And at nuclear power plants, it's the same thing. We collect so much different data. I cannot tell you that we adequately work and analyze all of the data and we're able to draw conclusions, but data collection process is in place and it's very useful. So in maintenance scheduling is done better, predictive analytics is used, and what is even more important for us, we can forecast potential unplanned halts which cost us much more and are much more problematic considering the power market. So when we have to generate and we have to do maintenance, otherwise you'll be financially sanctioned for those halts. So digital will be implemented more and more, and any production company will be using that. Whether manufacturing companies should migrate to such an extent to become a software company, that's too hard for me to tell. Most likely, as I said initially, it's about partnership for the most part. Because there's some critical skills, they cannot be acquired in 5 minutes or 5 years. The company develops for a longer period of time to become a full-fledged provider of digital products. Indeed, it's great if you have a good start. We use this platform for our industry needs. We use mathematical modeling of physical processes, and it's great when colleagues from KAMAZ come and we can show them, instead of using physical objects, you just calculate everything using this model, the same result, but you save time, you save costs. It's amazing. So that We're not a full-fledged software company, but still we have our own digital products and we sell them to others, like to Kamaz aviation industry. Once again, mathematical modeling of physical processes is used by them. So, but it's not really that easy, and you shouldn't put all of your eggs in the same basket. And do it on your own is very hard. So, at least at the initial stage, we decided that we should do it with partners, with experienced companies who know how to do it, who have experience, who know how to maintain and support those products. So, okay, thank you. Would you like to comment on this? Anton, yes and no. Here's why no. We shouldn't become developers, but if we should work with developers, not instead of developers. If you talk about aviation, all the fine tuning for those products, it's done internally, in-house, and nobody wants to share what they have done. I mean, we meet with those people from those companies. We have high-level conversations. They don't want to share their know-hows, and developers cannot hand it over to us because they're bound by confidentiality, non-disclosure agreements, and colleagues from PTC and Siemens, they have their own competences here, and so they cannot share. So the key competencies, adjustments, and fine-tuning, this is something up to us. We should do it. We should adjust and adapt those solutions, and this is the key thing. And because it really affects operational properties, you should develop that competency in-house in your industry and have standardized requirements for those solutions. And to have centers where you fine-tune and adapt those products, because you have your own specifics. Like in the aviation industry, we have to do it, and with many similar processes, we should standardize them. Thank you. In fact, it's more like, even though everything that has taken place in shipbuilding is most maritime solutions become electronic, digital, so integration becomes an issue. So we'll have to become IT experts, because we as holders of design documentation and authors of the most of the applications for our products, but still we will not replace those software companies, because they develop key, root products. It's not our sphere. We will become a service company. So in shipbuilding, we'll be even providing some transport services in the final analysis. Maybe one day, sure, but we're not there to replace those professionals who develop IT solutions. It's really not up. It's not our business. But specialized applications and automation systems for our products, this is something that requires implementations, and we have created special companies that will be accumulating those solutions and experience. I would like to add to that. So we were talking about digital production and transformation, but it's done by people. If you take a look at it, at what is going on, because everybody is involved in that, so we don't see a growing number of people in the industry. And also, if you look at the educational program in our university, Zord, Skolkovo, there is one program. We should have more such programs, and they should be updated. And so there are very few of them out there. So, but without training, without university education, without proper teaching staff being in place, that idea will not fly. So, Nikolai, being on the side of the consulting, going to the other side of the table, in your experience, what problems arise between clients and vendors when they implement new technologies. Good morning, colleagues. I wanted to share this point on our agenda. We mentioned GE, and we will have a session on implementation, and a Rosneft representative will be talking about their case, how they partnered with Predix, by the way, how they implemented it in their production. So that is, Predix is a GE product which is dying out there, but is implemented successfully with Rosneft. But yeah, we need to hear firsthand from that Rosneft representatives, because they were partners with GE, and so there's some results that they achieved. So, okay. So speaking of your question, Anton, so flagship companies of digitalization, of course, they're beyond the benchmark in the industry. We as consultants, what we see in the market, even though there's a lot of conversation about digitalization, but some problems are still there. And the main trend that we see today, it's a digitalization on both on the sides outside the vendors and clients. It's pretty much the old automation programs that have been never implemented fully. So you said that you do it step by step. You automate routine processes, then production processes are next. Then you implement machine learning and AI. And oftentimes, if you look at digitalization programs, pretty much at least half of it is about automation. Maybe it's not a bad thing in and of itself, and this new impetus that we have, it helps to revive this, but it makes me think, why didn't they implement the automation before? So, because those problems, old problems, they never been resolved. So it's some gaps between the agenda of the ambitious IT director and businesses that are interested in their objectives. So some new technologies may not be proven in terms of their efficiency. We're not ready to invest in them. And those IT projects, those digitalization projects, which have been tested, of course, they're treated differently. There's a cultural component there as well. And here at the round table, in your companies, you have managers who even though the level of digitalization may be high, but they still ask you, get a print off of this email. An assistant brings that printed off email, and they read it, holding that hard copy in their head. So it still happens like that. So something is wrong in that picture. So I don't know if you agree with me or not, but that's how I see it. Anybody on the industry side, would you like to respond to that? Yes, my first experience of implementing electronic document turnover, we reduced the use of paper by 15%. But some people do not like electronic displays, those monitors. They think it's they enjoy holding paper in their hands. So of course you can even write on use a stylus. You can write on your screen, but initially it was kind of physiological. It was not so much about digitalization. It was a habit. And if we talk about document turnover and other digitalization issues, now you have electronic signature, but security is an issue. But now our developers, for some reason, they don't really work on this. It's impossible to work with the ERP system, because we have government procurement program, we have military procurement programs. So some of the things we still have to get printed, and because cybersecurity is an issue, and and development of production without cybersecurity will not be possible.
And now we are switching to Andrei Dukhvalov, who is representing Kaspersky Group, your regular participant of our meetings. We all know what your work is about. And this is some sort of a joint concern. The cyber threats are there, and we need to protect ourselves. Indeed, we do. So, what happened recently in your world? Are cyber threats changing? And is it enough just to buy a standard antivirus system, or we need to undertake a more complex approach? The world is changing, by all means, and listening to this discussion, I was taking notes, and I've wrote down things like digital twin, digital product, digital platform, Internet of Things, Industry 4.0, mathematical modeling. All these terms come from IT industry. And integration of IT technologies into our life. And I'm not talking about our industry now, I'm talking generally. Integration of IT technologies changes life. But together with the benefits we get from this integration, we also, and business also, business must apply digital technologies. We all understand. But together with the benefits these digital technologies bring us, we stand to face the threats, the new threats, like one of our colleagues has just pointed out. And by the way, this is the first time we uttered the word security during our discussion in the context of confidentiality. But in cyber physical systems, or integration of cyber world into the physical world, is important. And in this context, cybersecurity has a wider meaning. So apart from confidentiality, confidentiality is an important part of cybersecurity, but it is also about traceability of processes, which also has some sort of security aspect in it. Moreover, security breaches. If before a security breach, the heavy security breach resulted in stealing, in violating confidentiality, like stealing some secrets, commercial secrets or state secrets, for example. Now, security breach may result in, let's say, in an environmental change. Security breach may have impact upon people's life. And a recent example, Mr. Grefko gave this example at the International Cybersecurity Conference. Hackers hacked a computer which was used over the course of performing a neurological operation, and surgeons had to operate without assistance of computers. Before they used to operate like this, but now the work of a neurosurgeon or brain surgeon is unthinkable without assistance of computers. And those computers were hacked right over the course of the operation. They were asking for a ransom. Just imagine what the consequences could be. But those doctors were professional brain surgeons. They were able to complete the operation, but imagine the consequences. And Russian manufacturers, do they fully understand? I'm getting there. Or a different example, in 2012, Saudi Aramco, the biggest oil producer in the world, the biggest oil company in the world, also under a hacker's attack, and it lost its data. And the result of this, they didn't steal this data, but the way they just eradicated the data. So as the result of this data loss, they had to stop oil shipments for 2 weeks. Just imagine the amount of loss they incurred. And so they had to ship products based on the not on the basis of a contract, but based on what the customers said. Because the customer said, you owe me this under this contract, and they were incapable of checking this because they didn't have contracts. And until they restored their data completely, they were running completely blind. And Mr. Komarov has pointed out that IT systems are an integral part of the business, and right now you cannot be competitive without using these systems. So I'd like to side with Mr. Komarov and a number of other speakers here who said that we need to be building these products in partnerships with you. I'd take a liberty to state that our company is the largest expert in the world in cybersecurity area. We have a methodology, we have the expertise and qualification to protect your cyber systems, but we cannot do that on our own. Cybersecurity of industrial systems, from our perspective, is probably the most important IT task. But you take any industry, you take any system, and you will see that you can only build a valuable system in full cooperation with people from the industry. Otherwise, it is impossible. But getting back to cybersecurity, I'd like to point out to a trend which I believe is important. These IT systems are ubiquitous. They are all interrelated. They are linked to each other. And it is impossible to ensure cybersecurity just with one system. Just imagine. There is a functional IT system that was developed to perform a particular operation. Okay, now we've done this. Now let's make it secure. It doesn't work like this any longer. In the previous days, you could install a firewall, introduce password. It stopped working. It no longer works. This is not to say that you don't have to have passwords on your computer, but this is no longer efficient. Now you need to be building this IT system, making sure it will be protected. Its architecture needs to imply the need to ensure cybersecurity, because all these systems are operated in a very aggressive environment. Thank you. And I'd like to ask a question to our vendor from abroad. What does your experience tell you? Your experience of working with Russian customers and foreign customers, and if we compare Russian customers, your customers, with international customers, what would you say? So what kind of mistakes can you point out to? What kind of misunderstanding you used to have? And another question is, how do sanctions affect your work here? How is you? John Stewart, please. The floor is yours. And please be brief, so that we can have another round of discussion here.
And, thank you, colleagues, for the opportunity to be here today. So you covered a lot of ground, and we at PTC have something for everybody. Just as a reminder, we've had a long history with Russian companies. Our founder 33 years ago, Dr. Geisberg, Sam Geisberg, is from Leningrad, and we built the first 200 of our developers with Russia. I'd like to pick up on something that Mr. Rybakov said on behalf of helicopters. We are on the side of all the above strategy. You cannot be homogeneous in the way you approach the market. You have to work with developers. You have to work with your competitors. You have to work with your partners in order to be successful. So with Russian companies, I like the openness that you've embraced, that you are open to working with multiple companies and partners. So for example, even though Dassault and us compete on the CAD business pretty vociferously, we cooperate with a lot of their customers at managing their CAD data through PLM systems. With GE, for example, we compete against Predix, and yet 1,000 factories are leveraging ThingWorx for the Internet of Things, for smart connected operations. But for the challenges that you've asked for, to try to be brief and succinct, The first one is that it's about belief. We need Russian companies to believe that augmented reality is real, that Internet of Things is real, and that our Vuforia software for augmented reality can create time to value immediately. And there's 11,000 developers in Russia today that can help companies in Russia do so. And we've done our part. We've done a part where we've educated the market with Dr. Michael Porter and Jim Heppelman, our CEO, to educate how to get value in augmented reality, and we provide a business model for that, so that these developers that have produced 13 million downloads of augmented reality apps are available on the market today. So that's the first thing, is about belief. And then the second thing is about doing it yourself. Sometimes Russian companies, respectfully, will stand back and look at other companies make mistakes, okay, and then learn from that and try to do that themselves. Sometimes that wait misses a window, and there is value in IoT today. There's value in augmented reality. I represent the AR side of the business, and I would just encourage Russian industrial companies to take a look at getting immediate value from ThingWorx, from Vuforia, from Internet of Things, from augmented reality today, because it does exist.
Дополненная реальность.
Augmented reality. Is this product, augmented reality, is this product selling well in Russia?
It's easy to sell in Russia because it's an easy model. You download for free, you develop for free, you pay when you deploy. So we have industrial companies in Russia. We have 6,000 domains in Russia that are using the software. So 11,000 developers, 6,000 domains, published 17,000 apps, and 13 million downloads. So it's a real easy business model to do in Russia.
Джон, санкции как-то...
How do sanctions affect your relations with the Russian customers?
It's a problem, specifically for state-owned entities. That is a challenge. So on July 12th, Mr. Putin and Mr. Trump hopefully will discuss some sanctions in Helsinki, but there's a lot of challenges in the world. We would like to get through the sanction issues. It's been an issue for the worldwide economy, and hopefully something will manifest itself.
Спасибо, Джон. Патрик,
Thank you very much, John. And Patrick, Dassault Systems is a long-standing partner of Russian customers. Same questions.
Invite us to this panel, and thanks so much to our customer to make so positive comments about what Dassault is providing to a very strategic industry like atomic industry and submarine industry in Russia. So we are very honored, and I think a lot of things have been said by Mr. Komarov about the key element of success of working with a Russian company. And we had a lot of lessons learned also of working with Rosatom in order to engage further with Russian organization. And everything has been said. Mr. Komarov talked about cooperation, talked about strategic partnership, talked about transformation, and I think this is the key words. There are some technologies that can, of course, provide help in the digitalization, like IoT, augmented reality, or things like that. But there are some foundations. Let me take an image. When you build a house, if your foundations are wrong, you can put the most nice window you want and the best, better chandelier or light you want, your house will be wrong. So the foundation must be perfect. And the foundation are what? The foundation are basically the data, and the foundation are the process. So if you don't have a system, and you can call it from a marketing standpoint, digital twin, the digital twin has been almost invented 20 years ago. That's just a marketing repaint. The question is, has it been executed? Has it been implemented? Has it been really used for the value it has to provide? And the answer is, except few exceptions, in Russia it's not. So this is a foundation that first must be established, and like, for example, our distinguished customer on the table have done. And that's a critical topic. I want to observe also a second element of the dialogue about element of strategy between one system and relation between developers and who has to do what. And I will make a couple of observations. The discussion about one system, two systems, a PDM, not a PDM, managing the data, this discussion is absolutely over. Why it's over? Because today, again, the problem is to integrate data and process. So on a very critical system, having an heterogeneity of application like Mr. Romanoff mentioned is just a nightmare. It's just inefficient. So unfortunately, there is a need to have a fully integrated system, which a platform which allow innovation and collaboration, of course with appropriate security features. And my second observation is about the relation between developers and industrial company. When you observe which company in this domain of IT has been successful on the market, even in the ERP system, these are companies who are becoming global. It has been proven that the company who were internal IT organization, particularly in the technical domain, and there have been a lot. All automotive industry in the last 20 years had their own CAD software. All aerospace companies in the last 20 years had their CAD software. They have almost all disappeared, except one. Because this solution was going on the market, become global, and become confronted to competition. The value is coming from competition and from the accumulation of experience. And that's why, of course, the platform has to be open, working with industrial company because there is always some specificity, but the foundation have to be extremely robust. And those foundations have to be the accumulation of all experiences from other customers. That's the best value you can bring to Russia by adopting this strategy.
Санкции.
Sanctions.
Influence of
I think my American colleague, who is probably the country who is imposing the sanction to you, said everything. So like him, I'm hoping that the meeting with Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin will be very productive, and then we will be pleased to attack massively all your industry.
Спасибо, Патрик. Джонатан, Cisco работает.
Jonathan, Cisco has been operating in a number of countries all over the world. And so what is your experience? What are the main challenges you ran into with Russian customers? How can you compare these difficulties with other difficulties Cisco faces with international customers? Do you have any alternative answer to this question about sanctions, or you're also waiting for this July meeting? Anton, thank you very much. So as far as the specific challenges we have in the Russian market and whether these are different from those we have with international companies, I would say no. Based on what I heard over the course of this discussion, it is no different from the challenges we had 20 years ago. And what I see now, and I've been working in the IT industry in the telecom sector for over 20 years, and I've been living for 28 years in Russia. Russia watches what's happening in the world, and sometimes it lags behind other countries in implementation of new technologies, but then it catches up really quickly with the world leaders and comes up with its own best practices. That happened fairly frequently. We have the head of smart cities, and that's our business line, and he was shocked by the level of Moscow development. What Moscow mayor is doing in Moscow in the area of the smart city project, this is the best practice currently available in the world. As far as sanctions are concerned, this is impacting our business in Russia. It is impacting Russian business, and I completely agree with my colleagues. I do hope that the meeting in Helsinki between Mr. Putin and Mr. Trump will give us good results to this extent. But I'd like to throw a couple of more ideas into discussion. Well, having listened to my colleagues from the industry, I would say that IT nowadays, well, we all understand that without our devices, we will not be able to operate. Without these devices, we feel physical discomfort. And yes, we may have all sorts of these devices around us, and it just underscores the importance of IT role. And our IT leaders are not fit yet to the idea that they are also business leaders, not just IT leaders. They need to work in close cooperation with sales and marketing, with financial departments, and But as far as big projects are concerned, the key success factor is the human factor. I remember my tenure in Accenture, in a consultancy firm, and we had an experience of changing our billing system. That was the first big project we had, and that project took twice as much in terms of time and twice as much in terms of cost. We had to replace the supplier of the billing system right in the middle of the project. And there was one big reason for this. We didn't have skilled people. We didn't have experienced people. Even inside Accenture, we couldn't find the right project manager for that sort of a project, especially in Russia. 5 or 6 years after, I worked in Nokia Networks, and we talked one of the mobile operators into the need to go for Nokia Networks instead of Moscow landline network. There were 2 project managers from Finland, and I sent these project managers back home, and I assigned a Russian project manager to this project, and it was a success. So IT and human factors is very important.
So human factors still remains very important, as it has been said. So we have a Cisco academy, we have our own training center, we have 450 such academies in Russia. So now we have over 30,000 trainees. So education, training should be taken very seriously, because human factor is key for success. Thank you, Jonathan. Anton, I wanted to give you the floor after the 3 representatives of the international business. So besides this traditional question on implementation and how you build your relationships with clients, so Russian software companies, did they use the situation that many European and American companies faced difficulties in working with large Russian customers? So if you compare like Russian agricultural producers use that opportunity, so so what about Russian software companies? Did they grab on this opportunity? Thank you, Anton. Thank you for the invitation to this event. But you know, our company has been in the market for 30 years. We've been growing with the country, with the industry. We're resolving these hot issues. We create IT systems that help manage resources, production facilities, maintenance and repairs. We, with our solutions, make it possible to really cover all the life cycle stages, accepting engineering software. This is not something we do. So our main objective now is to bring to Russian state-owned corporations this idea that we have Russian full-fledged and highly proficient solutions. Besides traditional solutions, we offer tools to manage manufacturing. This is the blue ocean, as it was called during the strategic session. And so that objective, we think, is in great demand in order to centralize the processes inside the holdings and state corporations, because as they evolve, they transition from managing production assets and managing companies and their subsidiary companies as shareholders. They switch to a more centralized process. So there's a great need for end-to-end digitalization at the level of the holding down to a digital workplace. So we have tools for that. And basically, they allow you to develop your resource model with partners, then end-to-end production, to have end-to-end production plan with all the participants of the process, those who are involved in operations, then to launch and control manufacturing programs. And consequently, it gives you real impacts for the industry, because you can calculate on the go whether you can do it or no, or if you are able to do it or not, depending on your capacity availability. Are you going to meet your deadline or not? Whatever the contract is, whether it's a civil contract or a military contract. And on the whole, if you look at this task as an industry one, it helps you to increase your productivity and capacity, because holdings will have a chance to attract those to use the capacity that are not fully utilized from other companies inside the holding. Anton, you said that now is a good harvest time. What about Russian companies? How they treat you as a vendor? Is there a stereotype? If you need to buy high quality software product, it should be some international you should buy it from an international company. Do you run into this stereotype, into this prejudice? We even came up with this term. We need to de-zombie them, because some IT specialists have inertia in their thinking on this. So we need to work with them. We need to inform them. We need to demonstrate our solutions, and so we need to do a lot of work on this. We develop prototypes, models, provide practical examples so they would be able to see the functionality, and also to see our processing capacity. And we need to demonstrate the applicability of our solutions. With Rosatom, we signed a strategic partnership agreement on digitalization as part of import substitution. So we have great hopes that it will be developed. Thank you. And besides developing out-of-box solutions, we also developed an integration platform to integrate best things the companies have, the best experience of their experts, and develop industry solutions with those people in the holding. Denis Valentinovich, we wouldn't stop our discussion, and of course I wanted to hear your comments on this dialogue between industry representatives and software representatives. I know that Ministry of Industry and Trade has many tools to support this. It's one of your priorities, but all the new digital technologies, they're new and revolutionary. Sometimes they're implemented for the first time. So to guarantee that this very technology will be successful, will help you increase your sales or decrease your costs. It's very hard to do it from start. Let's be realistic. Oftentimes, even back in the Soviet days, we saw that bad phenomenon when some people get too friendly with each other. The government may require something, or the president may require something, and then they need to report on this. They need to report on that achievement. So you, as the ministry, with your tools, how do you determine and how you who should be supported, which technologies are really efficient, and which are maybe they're just like result of people getting too friendly with each other? Thank you very much for the question, or the questions. So I am here as a referee or a commentator. Yesterday I was invited to this event, M&A event, martial arts event, and they asked me to comment on what was going on in the arena. So I was shocked. So I was on Match TV, and they asked me to comment about that bout, and I was didn't feel right about that. And now we're discussing digitalization. I will try to be. I'll be wearing my traditional hat here. Um, so KPMG may be our referee here. By the way, we played golf together. We really enjoyed it. And also Deloitte and Touche was our referee there. And we took the first place. And they played very well, but we won. But still, so jokes aside. So what kind of conclusions we can draw from this panel discussion? First of all, in all the previous days, everybody was so concerned about the football cup, but on Monday, now we live in the post-football world from Monday on. But now next Monday, the summit of our two leaders will be taking place in Helsinki. So we have many hopes. We really hope it will be positive. But speaking of the implementation of modern technological software products, several perspectives have been presented here. Some think that only professionals, companies are able to do it, those who have been involved with it for many years. Others think that General Electric, as an example was given, they from manufacturing company, they wanted to be transformed into a software company. It didn't really work. Maybe some things work, but not everything. We have another example though. Mr. Fardu should agree with me. Dassault was an innovation company initially, but then they developed a software product for themselves. And then they started to offer it to other companies, to other markets. So they became an IT specialist. So I think different formats are possible. A colleague from Russian Helicopters told us that they're trying to use some in-house products. Mr. Komarov from Rosatom, even though it's a large structure in industrial structure, but they also develop technologies for the nuclear industry, which is their core business. But I can confirm and tell you that software developed by Rosatom is actively used by a Russian manufacturing companies, and I can tell you its quality is good. And maybe if we talk about Dassault, there's some competition with them. Some things can be improved, perfected, but in specific narrow specialized product, Rosatom has achieved good results. Speaking of getting too friendly with each other, Alexey Lvovich, you are to attain objectives defined by the president, and I'm there to monitor the process. So, and you're implementing modern products to become a more efficient company, to survive. Well, not just to survive, but those colleagues who are here, those who are absent, it still depends on the person. We discussed that. We talked about the human factor yesterday, whether it's important or not, but it is important. A lot depends on the leader. how they're able to face the challenges of today. It all depends on the leader. And when we talk about how we evaluate the efficiency, we evaluate it by key performance indicators. Maybe they do not implement anything, but maybe he's a super genius. He doesn't implement. So without these IT technologies, they may have a difficult time attaining the required performance. So, but this is how we evaluate the efficiency of the company, and I understand perfectly well, and I'm 100% confident there, that even though with all these sanctions, they're around us, they're up in the air, but we're here at the same table with these companies, and we speak the same language, and we are saying that we need partnerships to achieve those results. And especially for manufacturing companies. Of course, you may develop an in-house product in your own structure, but still, you should always use and take as a basis the accumulated products, already developed products that professional companies have been promoting in different markets. Of course, another issue is that I used to be the head of a large integrated structure, and with Russian helicopters as well, but I don't remember such a product, especially back in the 90s, in the early 2000s. We basically engineers were counted. Basically, we didn't have hundreds of engineers. We had very few engineers. So we had one computer workplace, and license was very expensive. And today licenses cost a lot, but still, any product should be adapted for the production specifics. Any production has its own nuances. And coming back to the human factor, at yesterday's discussion we said whether it's fashionable or not. Like you talk about chief innovation officer. Back in the Soviet days, we just called them chief engineers. Chief engineer, that's basically what it is. The more progressive they are, the more effective, the more efficient production is, and including implementation of any innovative products and production optimization. So to achieve effective results, we need to have partnerships with professionals. Thank you, Denis Valentinovich. We have time for a few questions from the floor. Anybody? Kirill? So while they're bringing the microphone, could you bring the microphone here? We need to save the time. Okay. It's on the way. By the way, I recently was at the Foundation for Internet Initiatives, and I really enjoyed it. We have many young people, many young companies who develop very cutting edge solutions in IT, and but they interact closely with manufacturers. So this is it's not just a software program, it's kind of hybrid product. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Denis Valentinovich, for the high estimation of our projects, and thank you for this chance to speak. Internet and IoT technologies become more and more an integral part of production processes, and And I just wanted to mention a couple of technologies that we have and then share some observations. In fact, there's technologies are developed, Russian startups who from scratch can offer some breakthrough solutions. Specifically, Bell Finance Group, it works with KAMAZ now. Basically, they develop a digital model of the production. They're not just developing it, but there's a system they have with machine learning and AI. Automatically, it shows the where the bottlenecks are and offers solutions how to eliminate them. And KAMAZ now designs wants to reduce its production cycle by 1.5 factor. So that's it's a major thing for such a company as KAMAZ. So we as partners, we offer BFG solutions, but large companies don't believe in that.
Well, they tell us if you can demonstrate the economic effect, we'll pay you 4 or 5-fold. But this is something that was pointed out at here today. IoT is here, AR is here. We need to believe in it, and we need to have faith in these technologies. And so I'd like to address large corporations and say, don't be afraid to talk about your true targets, purposes, and the challenges that you face. Like you mentioned, automating the document flow, automating back office operation, and we call it digitization. That may be one of the tasks. Let's say you come to us and say, implement the doc flow system for us. But we need to address the pressing issues, like, for example, boosting profitability, reducing the production cycle, boosting quality. And as far as these issues are concerned, those startups which we work with, they're very flexible. They actually don't think that they don't have negative experience, so they don't know that these tasks cannot be resolved. This is why they resolve them. And another thing, we have an augmented reality technology which helps to remotely connect a number of design centers which are physically located in different locations, so they all contribute to one digital model of a product. And here we have a second issue, because the question here was asked whether there is a difference in the experience of working with Russian companies and foreign companies. It is more difficult to sell an idea, but we face less competition as far as entering the market is concerned. Thank you. Dennis, can you tell us about, let's say, your recipe? We have vendors here, we have manufacturers here, and you used to manage a big manufacturing company. And as a person who regularly meets our colleagues here, could you give a guideline to our vendors in terms of the most efficient way to promote revolutionary technologies? Let's say when you try to sell this technology for the first time, it's extremely difficult when you don't have, let's say, history of hundreds of implementations. But it is a revolutionary technology. So what these people should do in order to persuade all these people around this table, say it works, it's going to work. Let them come to me. I will make sure it is promoted properly. Okay, thank you very much. And I'd like to make another point. You asked me a question, I forgot to answer it before. Regarding the measures which we have in place to support you. So you asked the question, how do we measure the efficiency of these support measures? Or how do we rate companies which need support? At the stage where, when the funds are allocated, we are not trying to take a look whether the company is efficient or inefficient. So we are trying to help all our companies across the board, be them state companies or private companies. We try to assist them in implementing the digital technology. So we food part of the bill in for the engineering products which we buy. So we are subsidizing that. We have we can provide a loan at a reduced interest rate from 1 to 5% annual interest. That's a ruble loan. Also, that's the second way to help you to promote these technologies, so that your customers would see that there is a value for them in implementing these products. And when we getting back to the previous situation, to FRIA, it is very difficult to alter it other than using a manual or in manual mode. And Alexa is a good innovator, by the way. But there are also cases when you come to the high-ranking manager, you start making your case in front of him, and you see that he does not understand. He's not getting the point of these innovative things. So it is mostly driven by the management of these companies. But we will try to do our best to support your programs, to support your solutions through providing, let's say, direct measures of support like reduced interest loan. And I'd like to clarify this joke to our foreign colleagues. When you say address me directly, they could have thought, well, it is a joke, but this is the case. Indeed, it's not a joke. It's not a joke. Our minister have recently visited our innovative incubator, and there is a way for you to address the minister directly. I'm not saying this tongue-in-cheek. I know you all. We are in contact on a regular basis. And as far as young companies are concerned, please, I'll give you an example about Kaspersky. This is a world leader in cybersecurity area. But despite that, where did this story start? 2 years ago, I visited an exhibition in Hanover, and Siemens showed me a modern digital solution for this digital production. I asked them a question: how they were planning to ensure cybersecurity, and I realized that they don't have the security solution. I brought them together with Kaspersky, and then Kaspersky had their own booth nearby, and now they have a joint product. Now Galactica has joined it also, and at our booth of the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. Please visit it and you can take a look at this product. It's the result of combined efforts from Siemens, Kaspersky, Galactica, and Aviation Composite. This is just one of examples of how integration process may go. Dear Dennis, thank you very much. So you are an intermediary and a referee. Well, I have to be one. Dear colleagues and dear Dennis, thank you very much for your attention. And digital manufacturing, this is the theme of our exhibition this year, and it will continue. Thank you.